So I just wanted to talk about things to check if you've just built a Stirling Engine kit up and it's not running as expected or not running at all. So we have some hot coffee here and we have a Stirling Engine. Now this Stirling Engine is running absolutely fine, but I can show you the things you can do to actually check how to get it to run. So one of the things you can do is, I'm just going to unscrew the con rod at the back. So this is the one that is connected to the displacer. I'm going to remove the con rod like so. Now what I can do is what I call manually operate the engine. So this test does a number of things. It basically tells us that there's a good seal and the engine is wanting to run in for most aspects. So if we lift this up, you will see that the power piston shoots up. If we push it down, it goes down and it bounces down. And you can almost, if you get the timing right, you can almost operate the engine manually. Okay, so what we can prove from that is we've got a good seal, the power piston's working well, but what we can't prove is if there's too much friction actually in the engine, and we have to use some other tests to actually solve that problem. So another test that we do, and it really is sort of a number of tests, and just some of those tests will identify what's going on. So if we undo this con rod here, right, so I can just leave that loose. Now it doesn't have to be on something hot at all, you can just be doing this test can be done on just a desk without any heat behind it. So what you need to do is just give the flywheel a really good flick. And that flywheel should spin for over a minute, certainly, maybe even 2 minutes. If it grinds to a halt before a minute, then we know there's a problem with the bearings or something to do with the bearings. So sometimes what people will do is, if I just stop this here now, sometimes this crank at the back here will be too tight, so they won't allow enough play. So you see there's a little bit of play in there at the moment. There won't be enough play in it and they'll be squeezing the bearings, so that could be a problem. Also the bearings can be seated sort of at angles, so they could be just pushed in the housings just at angles, and that can cause too much friction. So disconnect both con rods, give the flywheel a really good spin, and it should run for well over a minute, maybe 2 minutes, and that would indicate that everything's fine. If it grounds to a halt after 30 or 40 seconds, we know there's a problem and need to investigate something around the bearing area. So another thing that you can check, and it's an important one, most of the time if an engine is poorly performing or not running at all, it's because of this problem. And that is essentially the displacer hitting the bottom or top plate. So even if it just glances the top or the bottom, then that's going to take energy out of the system or stop it running at all. And that's quite hard to tell from the side. You sometimes pick up on it sort of like a bump, and you can sort of feel like a bump as it's hitting there, but it's really difficult to tell. So it should not glance or touch the top or the bottom, and you can make adjustments with that. So the easiest way to make adjustments on that is you can disconnect this back con rod, like so. So say if it is touching the bottom, what you need to do is you need to push down on that gland just a little bit to actually make the displacer come up on the gland. If it's the other way around, if it's touching the top, you can pull the gland up a little bit and just give it a good tug, and you'll feel it move. The difficulty is it sometimes will move quite a lot more than you need it to, and sometimes it will move like a mil or more, so you have to be a little bit careful about how you do that. But that is the most common fault of an engine underperforming or not running at all. It's the displacer hitting the top and the bottom. It's very, very difficult to see from the side whether it's actually doing that, but that's the thing that you need to double and triple check when you create a kit for the first time and the engine's not running as well as you'd expect.